Lu Yin clenched his fist and suddenly punched out with the day-night punch. His spiritual force transformed into a devastating storm that swept towards Zi. Ever since he had absorbed Luing Zishan's spiritual force sphere, his spiritual force had risen to a level that was close to that of the 10 arbiters. Furthermore, his spiritual force had always been growing, and it had never stopped growing. The spiritual force that erupted from his punch stunned Zi for a moment. Lu Yin took the opportunity to use the Aeon Evolution scripture to weaken Zi's rune lines. Star energy gathered in his right palm, and he was just about to attack with the first sun when Starsabil shouted from the distance, "Back off!" Lu Yin subconsciously retreated. Hua Xiao also retreated. Nothing happened and Zi calmly stood in the sky. Lu Yin looked at Starsabil in confusion. If she had not told him to back off, his first sun would have landed on Zi's body. Although he was not certain that he would be able to break through that invisible shield, he could still try. Zi looked at Starsabil strangely, her eyes filled with curiosity. "What do you know?" Starsabil looked at Zi. "Your defense is not purely defensive. It also has some sort of counterattack ability. If you can't break through it, you'll suffer a backlash, right?" Lu Yin's expression changed, and he looked at Zi's invisible shield. Was that even possible? How was he supposed to fight? He could not guarantee that he would be able to break through it in one strike. Zi looked at Starsabil in astonishment. "How did you know?" Starsabil did not answer. Zi looked at her and then at Lu Yin. "I'm curious about both of you, especially you." She fixed her gaze on Lu Yin. "Did you do something just now? Like a secret technique?" Lu Yin's brows rose. "No, you saw wrong." "Really? I'm not too sure. Let's try again. If you don't break through my astral origin shield, then you won't be able to hurt me." Lu Yin was speechless. He looked at the invisible shield around Zi's body and felt like he could not attack her. Starsabil's voice rang out beside his ear. "Scatter and run. We're not her match." In the distance, Ling Ke had already run away. He still remembered the three's original intentions, which had been to use this battle to return to the Fifth Mainland's camp. They had not wanted to fight to the death with the enemy. He felt like he was loyally carrying out their plan, not running away. Below them, the hundreds of thousands of cultivators from the Sixth Mainland who had been in a sorry state finally saw Zi. The appearance of the Tao Source Three Skies had roused their spirits, and they were ready to fight back. Zi seemed to be responding to them. She raised her hand, and the invisible current that Lu Yin had seen as useless swept out. It swept past the Sixth Mainland's cultivators and descended upon the Fifth Mainland's cultivators. All of the Fifth Mainland's cultivators who were swept by the current rapidly aged before turning into dirt. Tens of thousands of people had turned into dirt, and the scene shocked everyone. Lu Yin's pupils shrank and he looked at Zi in disbelief. Zi's lips curled up into a smile. "Did you see that? This is vitality energy. It can absorb a person's vitality and turn them into dust. That's why I'm very curious as to how you blocked it." Lu Yin's scalp went numb and he felt a lingering fear. He had actually allowed this current to attack him, and he felt as if he had walked on the brink of death. How had he blocked it? Lu Yin's first thought was the Stonewall Scriptures, but he quickly dismissed them. Although the Stonewall Scriptures were mystical, they were not omnipotent. He then thought of a technique, the arcane art of life and death. He had used this technique twice before, both times when he had been on the brink of death. Lu Yin's group was only able to reach the Whitestone district as quickly as possible under the short man's guidance. Even with someone leading the way, it would take at least a few days to reach the Whitestone district. At the same time, the battle in the Whitestone district was becoming more and more intense. The giant general roll platform should have been used to host the Fifth Mainland's elites, and having their names engraved on it was a supreme honor. However, at this moment the platform was being stepped on by Bukong and Zi. Countless cultivators from the Fifth Mainland had bloodshot eyes. Bukong was a man with a jade-like face. At first glance, he looked extraordinarily handsome, but upon closer inspection, he seemed rather immature, as if he had just reached adulthood. His eyes were filled with insufferably arrogance and longing for the future. In reality he was only 20 years old, which was even younger than Lu Yin. However, his cultivation talent was extremely high, and he had grasped all of the secret techniques that the secret progenitor had passed down, which had shaken the entire Sixth Mainland. Throughout history he was the only one who had grasped all of the secret techniques at such a young age. In the past, Very few from the Tao Source 3 skies had been able to fully grasp the secret progenitor's techniques. Countless praises had gradually made Bukong arrogant, and just like his name, he considered everything beneath him. However, he was worthy of this arrogance, as aside from Wu Taibai and Ziyi, who were also from the Tao Source 3 skies, no one else was a match for him. Snatching the general role platform had been a complete accident, as he had not expected that the forces defending it would be so weak. Moreover, Ziyi's sudden appearance had given him a great deal of glory. The more the general role platform inspired the Fifth Mainland, the greater the glory he had achieved. He wanted his name to be forever engraved in the history of the Fifth Mainland, becoming a stain on the entire Fifth Mainland. He did not dare to let Bukong hit him, so he hurriedly retreated. The void where he had been standing trembled, but there was no reaction. Supreme God was puzzled, and Bukong pressed forward again, pressing down with his palm. "Don't let that guy touch you, you lunatic. He can beat you back into your mother's womb." Xing Kai roared, his voice echoing throughout the Whitefall district. Supreme God was furious and looked at Xing Kai. "You're insulting me." Xing Kai grinned. "No, it's the truth. It's his secret technique." Supreme God looked at Bukong strangely. Beat him back into his mother's womb? What kind of secret technique was that? Bukong sneered. "Try it," he said as he sped up. Supreme God was furious. He was arrogant even when facing Qiu Shi. However, he knew that these people were on the same level as him, including the 10 Arbiters. Now that even the 10 Arbiters had said something like that, he did not know what was going on. He was a little confused and could only keep dodging. People continued to arrive at the Whitefall district from all directions. Not only were there reinforcements from the Fifth Mainland, but there were also cultivators from the Sixth Mainland. Although the heirs of the imprinter families were not at the level of a realm ling, they were not weak either, especially the heirs of the cosmic imprinter families. If they worked together, they would be able to contend against the 10 Arbiters, just like how Lu Yin and the others had fought against the Junior Arrow Saint. The battlefield in the Whitefall district was filled with millions of cultivators fighting to the death. The most glorious battlefield was naturally the commander appointment stage. Supreme God's attacks were strange, but Bukong's secret technique was even stranger. In the end, he could not escape the fate of being struck by the secret technique. He was struck in the abdomen by Bukong's palm, but he was not injured. However, his body inexplicably shrank until he was the size of a child. He looked at Bukong, who was a head taller than him, in confusion. Bukong sneered and pressed down with a palm. "Die." Supreme God was stunned. When he had been struck by Bukong's palm, he had raised his hand against Bukong's attack. A long blade had appeared in his hand and slashed out, but it had been easily shattered by Bukong. At that moment, an arrow pierced through the void and shot towards Bukong. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 988. The Smoke Gulp Mountain Range was a very strange organization, and it was like a giant cigarette that lay in space. The battle techniques used by its cultivators, their life-saving abilities, and everything that they came into contact with during cultivation were all related to smoke. This smoke could not be produced in the outside world, and it could only be produced in the Smoke Gulp Mountain Range. The Smoke Gulp Mountain Range's foundation was this white smoke. The white smoke was very mysterious, and no one could say exactly how mysterious it was. In short, even if the Smoke Gulp Mountain Range could not compare to behemoths like the Home of the Gods or the Sirius sect, it was still a power that could not be provoked. This was because the white smoke was truly mysterious. Previously, Ziyi had tried to rely on life energy to tear through the white smoke, but she had ended up having to expend several times more life energy to do so. At the time, she had not paid much attention to it, as she had only thought that the white smoke had a very strong defensive ability. Now, however, as she watched the life energy being dispersed by the white smoke, she was at a loss. It was not just her, as even Bukong and the other Realmlings who understood life energy were at a loss. Life energy had actually been dispersed by the white smoke. That was life energy, an ultimate technique of the Sixth Mainland's Tao Source sect, but it had been dispersed just like that? As the life energy was dispersed, Xing Kai and the others stepped onto the stage and began the most intense battle of the younger generation so far. Only those at the level of the 10 Arbiters could participate in this battle, and there were more than a dozen participants. Ziyi's plan had been disrupted, but that did not stop her. Regardless of whether it was because of Lu Yin or the white smoke, the Fifth Mainland's people still charged over. She waved her hands and Genesis Tiangang rose from the stage and enveloped everyone. Xing Kai, Sarati, and Phoenix simultaneously attacked Genesis Tiangang, as they could not be trapped inside. However, they could not break through Genesis Tiangang, as Z's invincible defense was not that easy to deal with. Even if Xing Kai wanted to grow larger, it would be useless as he was already trapped within Genesis Tiangang. The battle on the stage had been sealed, as whoever won would be able to determine the power structure of the cosmic sea. At this moment, even if Lu Yin wanted to join the battle on the stage, he could not. He could only participate in the battle below, and it just so happened that Gu Shower had asked him for help. "Where's your smoke?" Lu Yin asked. Gu Shower could even block the little arrow saint, so he should not have been scared off by a crimson servant. Gu Shower was sullen. "It's gone. It's all gone. I only brought that much. Do you think that you can get some just by lighting up a fire?" Dachi Pu Chiu He chased after them as Lu Yin and Xia Tian attacked at the same time. Chiu He was shocked. He could still deal with one lone small fool, but 3 king-ranked martial artists caused him to panic as he hurriedly tried to escape. A day later, Xing Kai's body cracked open on the general appointment platform. He was severely injured and retreated to the rear of the south side. Xu Jing, Qiu Shi, and the others went forward to meet Bu Kong and the others. Not long after, the sword scholar's long sword shattered and he retreated to the back of the north. 2 days later, Tai Yixin used the scripture of eternity to weaken sword in the stone's defenses. Xu Jing pierced sword in the stone's heart in a straight line, almost killing him. However, sword in the stone used a secret technique to survive. The secret progenitor domain had many secret techniques. Welcome aboard. Stay tuned and subscribe to Han Li's Wuxia Adventures for more thrilling content. Chapter 989. Jin Ru and the rest looked at Lu Yin apprehensively. This guy had actually rendered Zi helpless. That secret technique was very troublesome. Even the 5th mainland's Xing Kai, Sarati Phoenix, and the others looked at Lu Yin strangely. On the surface of the sea, Starsibyl's face was pale. This stench was just too unpleasant. Miss Qing kept moving away as she blinked at Lu Yin. What an interesting person. She kept her distance from the general appointment platform and could not get close to it. This stench was unbearable. Gu Shower looked at Lu Yin as if he was a god. This was a god, a true god. He even had something like this and it was strong enough. However, it was just too smelly and Lu Yin could not stand it. The 6th mainland's originally advantageous situation changed the moment Lu Yin took out the stench. Zi alone was enough to tire out Qiu Shi and the others, but one person might not necessarily be able to hold her back. They might even need 2 people to work together. Now Zi was stuck to the stench and could not break free. The 6th mainland had lost one of the Daosaur's 3 skies and things were different now. Qiu Shi freed up her hands to deal with DFA. That guy did not fight head-on and instead he kept attacking from behind. His blood allowed his attacks to penetrate everything, so the injuries of Xing Kai and Sarati Phoenix were definitely related to him. Although DFA was not afraid of being targeted by Qiu Shi, he had no choice but to face her head-on. He looked at Zi. "Don't worry about that thing. It doesn't have any killing power. Hurry up and deal with this woman." Zi ignored him as she was focused on how to break free from the stench. Origin energy was useless and neither was Origin astral gas. Even the scarlet flame eyes were useless. What was this thing? Lu Yin was pleased with himself. This thing had forced Mr. Yi to escape multiple times, allowing him to reach the pinnacle of his life. It had a mystical characteristic and even Origin astral gas could not stop it. Why had he not thought of it earlier? He had to remember it in the future, as this was a powerful weapon that was far more useful than any other power vessel. Mr. E could not destroy it and neither could these people. Lu Yin did not know what the upper limit of this thing was. Zi was disgusted. She tried everything she could think of to deal with the stench, but it didn't matter whether she destroyed it or stored it in her cosmic ring. She didn't want to care, but Lu Yin's methods were very despicable. The Yu's secret art caused the stench to continuously smash at her face and even appear in her bosom from time to time. It was hard for her not to notice it as the stench was just too terrifying. It was enough to cause nightmares. He flitted past the crowd and appeared beside Zi. He raised his hand and slapped the stinky object. He activated his secret technique, the Great Reincarnation Art. The Great Reincarnation spell could send the target back to their childhood, which was equivalent to reversing the time of a person or object. He wanted to send the object back to its birth or make it disappear, but strangely, his palm had no effect. Lu Yin sneered. The stench had been unlocked from a source box, and no one knew how many years had passed since it had been unlocked. No matter how miraculous Spaceless' secret technique was, it would still be useless. Since the secret technique didn't work, he didn't have time to attack again. He activated his talent, decomposition, and slapped it on the stinky object, but it was still useless. Out of desperation, Spaceless grabbed the stinky object and tried to take it away by force, but Luin activated his secret technique and flung the object into Zi's arms. Zi's entire body trembled with rage, and the stench almost made her faint. There were no rune lines in the technocracy, so Luin did not know how strong this person was. However, he was certain that this person had a terrifying strength that far exceeded his own. Just the star energy pressure caused by this person's speed alone was not something that Luin could withstand. Luin did not dare to reveal himself and obediently stayed on the planet. That person might be a powerhouse from the technocracy, or at least an envoy-level powerhouse. Not long after, the cyclones on the planet returned to normal, and the planet returned to its original state. Luin sat down cross-legged and was about to continue reciting the Stonewall scriptures when he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He turned around and saw a pair of eyes staring at him that were filled with joy and surprise. The eyes belonged to a bald old man. His clothes were tattered, and it was obvious that he had worn them for many years. Luin's face paled, and he retreated several steps as he stared at the old man warily. He suddenly thought of Driftcharge Planet and the group of cannibalistic slaves. The old man grinned, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth. "Don't be afraid, kid. Come to Grandpa Hui." Luin's entire body tensed up, and 5 chains appeared in his hands. His power level of 300,000 was still not enough. He immediately took out his owl arrows and war arrows as well as his futon. He was prepared to flee at any moment. The people from the 6th mainland could use their futons to enter the Daosor Sex ruins, which meant that the 5th mainland's Daosor Sex ruins were not restricted by region. Right after the Bloodburn realm had invaded the Outerverse, Huang San and Yen Xiaojing had also entered the Daosor Sex ruins, and Luin had knocked them unconscious. The two of them should have been in the technocracy at the time. The technocracy could enter the Daosor Sex ruins. When the bald old man saw Luin take out so many things, he bared his teeth. "What are you afraid of, kid? Grandpa Hui doesn't eat people." Luin became even more afraid when he heard this, and he retreated a few more steps. "Ha, kid, you're really interesting. Come to Grandpa Hui. Grandpa Hui won't hurt you, but no one has spoken to me in many years. All that's left are mechanical puppets or those lunatics whose brains are filled with technology. With you here, Grandpa Hui won't be lonely anymore." Luin's scalp went numb and the monkey's voice rang out. "7th bro, it's over. That old fart." As senior, this junior unintentionally passed by and disturbed senior's cultivation. This junior will leave now, and he won't dare to disturb senior again. Luin leaped up and tried to tear through the void to leave. However, he was unable to tear through the void. Even with his current strength that rivaled an enlighter's, he was still unable to do so. This was because the void had been locked down by the bald old man. The old man had used star energy, or rather, the power of a powerhouse at the emissary level or above to lock down the void, preventing Luin from escaping. Luin's face was pale, and beads of sweat dripped down his forehead as he stared at the old man warily. The old man helplessly scratched his head. "Kid, you're too timid. What are you afraid of? Grandpa won't hurt you. Come talk to Grandpa." He then waved at Luin again, and this time, Luin's body was pulled over uncontrollably. He tried to resist, but it was useless. The old man was astonished. "Kid, your physical fitness isn't bad. It's rare for a 5-cycle cruiser to have such a physique. BZZT. Your star energy reserves are also enormous. Kid, who's your master?" Luin was pulled over to the old man's side, and he didn't even dare to move. When he heard the old man's question, he subconsciously answered, "It's Master Yuan, a powerhouse with a power level of 1,000,000 from the Hall of Honor." That's because you don't have enough experience. Read more books and find some heavenly treasures that can brighten your eyes and nourish your spirit. You might be able to deduce more. Luin nodded. "Thank you for the advice." Hui Kong laughed. "There's nothing to advise. I'm just lazy. Otherwise I could help you deduce it, but you can't always rely on others to deduce it. When you deduce 100 stacks one day, this power will be even stronger. For the same 100 stacks, your own deduction will always be stronger than inheriting someone else's. Luin deeply agreed. Thank you. The rest of my life is only for you. Brother's reward, I'll give it to you. Thank you, brothers, for your support. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.